Hello and welcome to our Best Practices in ECE Kindergarten Guide. This is webinar 2 of 2, and this webinar will review phase 2 of the Best Practices in ECE Kindergarten Guide, focusing on learning environments. Our agenda for today is to review current supports and timelines, review background information of this work, review the usability and functionality of the Kindergarten Guide web pages, review connections to the TEKS, and discuss next steps for implementation. Here are the objectives for today's session. Review key content and best practices in ECE Kindergarten Guide, and explore next steps for technical support with the best practices in ECE guides with upcoming webinars and office hours. First, let's start with reviewing the current supports and timelines for the Kindergarten Guide work. We currently have the Kindergarten Guideline documents published on our webpage. These include webinar recordings as well as office hours dates. In addition, we have our pre-K through second grade vertical alignment documents available in all domains within the Educator Resources webpage. Our work currently in progress includes the best practices in early childhood education pre-K, kindergarten, and administrator guides. You are here attending the second webinar in a two-part series for kindergarten educators. Office hours to support the pre-K, kindergarten, and admin guides began in August and will continue through the fall. Today you are attending phase 2 of our kindergarten webinars looking at classroom organization and routines, physical arrangement, activity lesson planning and curriculum implementation, and daily schedules. Note that there will be a separate webinar series for phase 3 that will be held for all early childhood program administrators. I will provide more information at the end of this webinar with future webinar and office hours dates. Let's review some of the background information for this work. A while back, parts of the introduction section of the 2015 Texas Pre-Kindergarten Guidelines were taken out in order to provide a condensed format of the 2022 guidelines with a focus on skills and outcomes. The decision was made to compile that content as a separate resource, which turned out to be the Pre-K ECE guidelines. As we conducted pre-kindergarten guideline focus groups, we found that there was a need from the field to provide more support with best practices, not only in pre-kindergarten, but also in kindergarten, and guidance for early administrators who support early childhood educators. We began to review some of this content and we realized that we needed a more thorough review of current research in early childhood, especially since that information was provided back in 2015. We also realized that we needed to have a condensed, user-friendly, and easily accessible format available for educators, which is where we came up with the idea of web pages to include the need for exemplars in the field in order to provide a more practical application of these best practices. As we look at the Best Practices Kindergarten Guide, remember our purpose is to support educators by providing effective, high-quality instructional practices in early childhood classrooms. Our target audiences for this Kinder Guide are teachers, teacher assistants, district coaches, site coaches, and any instructional staff that supports our kindergarten classrooms. The physical arrangement of the kindergarten classroom is a vital component in achieving a successful learning environment for young children. Overall, we want to use the physical space to promote language and literacy. Creating a classroom community that promotes children's language and literacy development requires that print-rich materials be located throughout the classroom. Well-stocked learning centers should be supplied with printed materials like posters, labels, fiction and nonfiction books that promote the integration of a multitude of academic concepts. Materials should also be representative of the cultural and linguistic background. So think of your play food representing different cultures. Materials should also be engaging and developmentally appropriate and should support instruction. When thinking about storage, use bins to organize materials and label them in the language of instruction. Storage needs to be organized in a way that makes sense to the children because that promotes responsibility and independence. Classroom displays need to be engaging, representative of the children, and useful, so refrain from displays that are overwhelming and visually distracting. And think about the traffic patterns and furniture. This involves logical and coordinated arrangement of the centers, arranging furniture to allow for a clear pathway, having child-sized furniture, and making sure accessibility is appropriate, so if the child has to reach up, it's too high, while also ensuring you can see the children at all times. This brings us to safety, literal accessibility for all children, including those with physical accommodations, and teacher material should always be locked away from children. This includes technology, supplies like adult scissors, and cleaning supplies. Here we have an exemplar of the physical arrangement in the classroom. We see clear traffic patterns, it's free of clutter, has clear walkways and entrance to areas, posters are at eye level, it's not cluttered again, has functional use of the wall space, and has classroom displays. Here we have a non-exemplar. A positive of this arrangement is that the bins are labeled and the children will be able to figure out where things go. However, would it be easy for children to find what they need? And would it be accessible for children with physical accommodations? Let's continue with classroom organization. A well-organized classroom with well-prepared activities helps children expand their attention span and build self-control and personal responsibility while supporting children's self-regulation, overall well-being, and receptiveness to learning. What we have highlighted in this guide is not exhaustive, but includes classroom norms, classroom procedures, color-coded or labeled pertinent areas of the room, labeled objects with print or pictures for quick identification, visual scaffolds for procedures, and a visual daily schedule. Kindergarten activities and lesson planning should begin with the implementation of the TEKS, then using the locally adopted instructional materials to plan the suggested lessons and activities. Remember that the goal is to help build developmental skills and give children everything they need to demonstrate school readiness. Certain practices are important to keep in mind, such as repeated exposures to content, teaching content across a variety of contexts, such as engaging all the senses, and allowing children to practice those skills with guidance or independently. Think of the differentiated instruction in the module of gradual release we covered in our previous webinars. These practices should be used alongside a locally adopted but approved high-quality instructional curriculum from a recommended list. Let's move on to the daily schedules. Here are some recommendations. A daily schedule should be displayed at the child's eye level and contain words and pictures or icons for identification. The daily schedule should be referenced throughout the school day and consistently followed, although adaptations should be made based on student or school needs. A daily schedule should include ample time for transitions and self-help procedures such as hand washing and gathering of personal belongings. And daily group activities should include cross-content learning experiences throughout the school day. Daily schedules may consider guidance from the use of a high-quality kindergarten curriculum. Like mentioned before, it should be continuously referenced throughout the school day. Like mentioned previously, there should be embedded time for transitions and self-help procedures. Daily group activities should include cross-content learning experiences throughout the school day. And in addition, we recommend the purpose and function of whole group and small group instruction, with whole group being 15 to 20 minutes of information and community building. And here the teacher may engage in activities such as read alouds, music and movement, morning message, daily schedule review, attendance or helper charts, or inquiry-based discussions. And for small group instruction, teachers should provide a balance of deeper understanding through intentional instruction of concepts, differentiated instruction, and child-led hands-on experiences for a short period of time from 10 to 15 minutes. The activities should be engaging and include open-ended conversations, with children taking on an active role using manipulatives, books, and pictures as opposed to worksheets and flashcards. Small group activities could include content review, collaborative learning such as the pair share or partner activities, art and writing experiences, or hands-on projects. And keep in mind, whole group and small group instruction support peer-to-peer collaborative and communicative opportunities and essentially work hand in hand in supporting the TEKS. Let's review the next steps for this work. Our next office hours are on October 24th, and this will be the best practices support for all guides. And just remember that the recordings from previously held best practices in ECE guide webinars are available on the ECE webpage.